Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your kind welcome with Harinama Sankirtan. I regret I didn't join with you more in the Harinama Sankirtanam due to some temporary wound that I'm undergoing. Thank you also the ladies who made the beautiful Rangoli. So we'd like to request everyone to kindly sit down. You can take chairs or sit on the floor. And also, please switch off your cell phone. All right. Most intelligent people don't have cell phones. So I have in front of me a list of 7 questions that it's been advertised that I would speak about. Now, any one of these questions would take quite some time to discuss properly. So I'll start with the first and let's see how far we go. Remove this bottle from here. So the first question is, who is God? It's a good question. It already presumes that we accept that there is God. Many people think that there is no God. That simply we're here, we get born, we die, and everything is finished. So anyway, we're not going to discuss that now. We accept that there is God. I think everyone here accepts that there is God. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come here. God means the Supreme Being. Param Vastu. Now, some people say that Jesus is God. Some people say that Allah is God. Some people say that Shiva is God. Some people say that Krishna is God. Some people say that there's Mrs. God, Bhagavati. Some people treat their wife as God. Although Shastra says that the wife should treat the husband as God, but in Kali Yuga everything's back to front. In the Western countries, and now there's a fashion to treat one's dog as God. And because in India everyone thinks that whatever everyone does in the West is best, so many people in India are now doing dog puja. So how are we to understand? Many people say that, well, there are many gods. And some people say that everything is God. But actually the definition, if we say that everything is God or there are many gods, then there's no meaning to the question, who is God? Because God means the supreme controller, the supreme person. So the knowledge of God has to be had from Shastra. If at all we are to know who is God, that knowledge must be from Shastra. Shastra means the knowledge that is given by God so that we can understand who He is. Now we may say, well, there are many Shastras. The most prominent in the world are the Vedic knowledge, the Bible and the Quran. So we accept Vedic knowledge as most authoritative because it treats the subject matter of the Supreme Brahma in a scientific manner and gives us knowledge of the soul, who we are. The topmost Vedic knowledge is summarized in Bhagavad Gita. We get a clue. Please turn your cell phones off, everyone. From Bhagavad Gita itself, we can understand who is Bhagavan. The very title, Bhagavad Gita, is derived from the word Bhagavan. So in Bhagavad Gita we have repeatedly the term Vijnana. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not ask, he does not say, you just believe in me or you go to hell. But he says, Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshyami asreshataha. That I will now speak knowledge, jnana, and vijnana, specialized knowledge, I will speak exhaustively. Exhaustively means completely. So it's a completely different approach to the Bible or the Quran, in which you're just told, well, you just have to believe it. In the Vedic knowledge, the approach is that one should try to understand it. Of course, understanding spiritual knowledge is not simply a matter of having a good brain, but good character is essential. Purity of consciousness is essential. We cannot understand God if our consciousness is in tamogun and rajoguna. So to develop good character, there has to be certain rules of behavior. It's not simply by discussion that we can understand God. That is why in our Krishna consciousness movement, for those who are serious to understand God and to practice Krishna consciousness seriously, we prescribe certain rules. One cannot eat meat, fish, eggs, garlic, onions and understand God. One cannot be the servant of one's tongue and also be the servant of God. One cannot be the servant of one's senses and be the servant of God. So all kinds of intoxication are also forbidden. All kinds of gambling are also forbidden. And illicit sexual connection, which is very much promoted via the cinema and the TV in the modern age, that is also forbidden if one is serious about understanding God. So there are certain religious systems that are becoming prominent in India today that very much promote meat eating and even drinking of alcohol. But one cannot develop love of God if one is in low consciousness. One may have a fanatical approach which is more impelled by hatred, but there's no actual love of God. So the question is, who is God? But first we should understand that to understand the answer to this question requires a certain level of purity. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna establishes himself scientifically as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he also says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavang mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. Only after many births can a jnani understand that I am Vasudeva, I am all-pervading, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and surrender to me. Such a Mahatma is very rare. But actually to understand the science of God is not very difficult. But our consciousness is polluted by Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, by so many material desires and attachments. Due to perverse material desires, we cannot understand even very simple things. Just like everywhere now, here in India, meat eating and fish eating is being widely promoted. Now, it's not a very difficult thing to understand that this is sinful. By causing unnecessary violence and pain to other living entities, we incur sin. So, and we will have to suffer the reaction to that. Why cannot people understand this? Because they are impelled by material desire. That sensation of pleasure that they get by tasting blood, they are overwhelmed by that. So, in the modern age, material desires are very much promoted. So this simple topic to understand who is God, people cannot understand. Generally, people think that God is that person or entity who we go to fulfill all our desires. So people go to temples, churches and mosques, or they pray at home. Oh God, improve my business. Cure my disease. Help me to pass my examination. Give me a visa for America. Or if you can't manage America, at least for Dubai. So in this way, people think that God is meant for fulfilling our material desires. But actually, we are meant for serving Him. So anyway, who is God? What is the scientific definition of God? From Shastra, Vishnu Purana, we have the definition. In English, there's a very general term, God. In Sanskritam, there are various terms, such as Bhagavan, Ishvara, Deva, Parameshvara, and others, ityadi. Bhagavan means who possesses all opulences. So Vishnu Purana describes Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasha sriyaha jnana vairagya yaschaiva shannam bhaga itinjena. This means that who is Bhagavan is one who has all wealth. If we think that whom everything belongs to, that is Bhagavan. Who has all power, who is all famous, who is all beautiful, who is all knowing, who despite having all these opulences is not attached to anything. That is Bhagavan. And is this not a good definition instead of just having a vague idea? So many people talk God, Allah, Ishvara, Jesus, but what are these symptoms by which we can understand who is supreme? This is the description by which we can understand who is supreme. And we can understand that this description can only be properly applied to Krishna. That is why Bhagavad Gita is called Bhagavad Gita. The Gita, the song of Bhagavan. And that is why Vyasadeva, who is also a portion of Bhagavan, Bhagavan Badarayanaha, he, in referring to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, always states Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. He does not write Shri Krishna Uvacha. Now, this description applies to Krishna, and there are other forms of Vishnu Tattva. So they're well-known Dashavatar, that Matsya Koma Varaha Narasingha Vamana Ityadi, and many other avatars also. But it is not that everything is and everyone is Vishnu. Vishnu is one person, the supreme person, but he appears in many forms. Now, I know that many people in Andhra Pradesh, they are attached to thinking that Saibaba is Bhagavan. Just like in Bengal, many people think that Ram Krishna is Bhagavan. In Gujarat, many people think that Swami Narayan is Bhagavan, and probably many of you never heard of Swami Narayan, but in Gujarat, many people think he is Bhagavan. When I was traveling in Bangladesh in the 1980s, I would find in every district they had a local Bhagavan. So it is not my intention to hurt anyone's feelings, but it should be stated that one's feelings or sentiment are not it's a very poor basis for understanding who is Bhagavan. It's essential to properly understand who is Bhagavan. Because you may do all your puja and prayers and everything with great faith, but if you do it in the wrong place, then it's like offering ghee into ashes. So, if we study these qualities of Bhagavan, we'll find they're perfectly in Krishna. Just like all beauty is in Krishna. Krishna is Shyama Sundara. Always we see Krishna is very, very beautiful. He is Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. He is more beautiful than even millions of Kamadevs can imagine. Now, as a symptom of Kali Yuga, many people who are not actually Bhagavan are promoted as Bhagavan. But by this scientific test, we can understand who is actually Bhagavan. Just like by scientific test, you put litmus paper, you can very easily understand what is acid, what is alkali. So by this scientific test given by Shastra, we can understand who is Bhagavan and who is not Bhagavan. Someone who is not extraordinarily beautiful cannot be considered to be Bhagavan. In India, Aishwarya Rai was famous as very beautiful. Actually, all over the world, she was Miss Universe, right? But that was how long ago? Maybe 20 years ago or something? 15 years ago. So I think now she's not so beautiful. So any material beauty, that is temporary. But Krishna, he is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His form is not material. We have seen the picture of Krishna at Kurukshetra with Arjuna. So at this time, by material calculation, he must have been in this world 125 years. But so you might expect that he should be in a wheelchair and with wrinkles. But there is no such thing because he is Bhagavan. He is as beautiful as ever. So you should seriously consider if someone is actually by material calculation very ugly and they spend the last years of their life going around in a wheelchair, this person cannot be Bhagavan. Now some people say, well, that's his Leela. Krishna's Leela is dancing and playing and singing. We don't find in any Shastra any description of Bhagavan suffering. So it is a very great mistake to consider someone, even if he's praised by others as Bhagavan, to actually be Bhagavan, if he's not Bhagavan. So I know that many of you are attached to Saibaba and maybe others also. But please consider very carefully, according to the knowledge of Shastra. Don't be misled. All these so-called avatars, they're products of Kali Yuga. There's no mention of them in Shastra. There's no mention of them in Shastra, except in a generic way to say that there are many cheaters in Kali Yuga. So who is God? If we understand very carefully from Shastra, we have to come to the conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, if God is one, why are there so many religions? That's the next question. Well, God presents Himself in various ways to different people at different levels in different times and places. You may say that, well, if mathematics is one science, then why is it taught in so many different ways? Because there are different levels of understanding. To a young child, we first of all teach 1 + 1 = 2. And we show them, you take one apple, another apple, you have 2 apples. You take one idli, another idli, and you have 2 idlis. And eventually they understand 1 + 1 = 2. Very good. Then it gets a little more complicated. 2 minus 1 = 1. And then they have to start really thinking. And later on you can get into all algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, and who knows what else. There's no use to try to explain calculus to to a child who is just learning 1 + 1 = 2. And in fact, many people, they don't get to that level at all. For them, it's enough to understand enough basic arithmetic so that they can handle the money that comes in their hands. So in the same way, there are different presentations of religion due to the eligibility of the people to understand. And another reason there are many religions is because there are many people who don't understand, who try to explain to others. So it all becomes confusing. Therefore, the beginning of Vedic spiritual culture is Atato Brahma Jignasa. Now one should inquire into the nature of the ultimate reality. Instead of just following some religious path because you're born into it, or because you like it, or because someone offered you a job if you adopted it, or because you wanted to marry a girl and she said you have to convert if you want to marry me. One should inquire into the actual nature of reality. So this approach will lead us, or has the possibility to lead us to the highest and fullest understanding of God that is possible for us as tiny jivas. And the Brahma Jignasa concludes the inquiry into the nature of Brahma, that concludes with Bhagavad Gita. With Arjuna's realization, he says to Krishna, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. You are the supreme Brahma, the supreme truth. Yeah, anyway, it's easier to translate it into Telugu. Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Frankly, you don't need to translate it. Bhavan means you, for those who don't know. Then what is Dharma? Is the next question. Dharmang tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma means to, or that which is given by Bhagavan. To live according to the rules that he gives, that is Dharma. Therefore we find in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya karyo vyavastito gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karyam karma eharasi. That one should know what are the shastras, what they prescribe, and act accordingly. Then the next question, is there life after death? Certainly. The body is only chemicals. But you and I are not simply bundles of chemicals. If the human body was a bundle of chemicals, then there would be no such thing as a murder case. If I take an axe and I smash a motorcycle to pieces, that is a crime. But it is not nearly as serious a crime as taking an axe and hacking to pieces a human being. Why is that? The motorcycle is only chemicals and the human body is only chemicals. And actually the material in a motorcycle you can sell for scrap and get a lot more than you can for a dead human body. The human body is mostly water, which is hydrogen, oxygen, then carbon and nitrogen. These chemicals are not very valuable. Whereas a motorbike is mostly steel, which is more valuable. So murder is a crime because within every living body is living because of the presence of the soul, which is not just chemicals. The Atma is independent of the chemicals that constitute the body. So when the body dies, we do not die. It's a simple thing to understand. Much more could be said about this, but due to time restrictions, I'll stop now, unless there are any questions. Actually, there may be many questions. That's why we invite you to attend our regular meetings. All right, are there any questions? So any questions, please? Please raise your hand if you have a question. There's a question there. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Yeah, Hare Rama is the answer. Now what's the question?
I used to always have this Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Since childhood, this is the only one I have had. But in Islam, I used to see always Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I have been haunted this question in a number of times. But I think this is the first time I'm asking because they're asking me questions.
All right, so we'll answer it. Say the question in Telugu. You are used to Hare Rama first, and in some parts of India the tradition is to chant Hare Krishna first. And it really doesn't make that much difference. But as we are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who chanted Hare Krishna first, we chant Hare Krishna first. Hare Krishna. Question or a speech? So what's the question?
In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna that actually I don't want to do so many things, I don't want to eat this, but I am forced to eat that, I don't want to do something, but I am forced to do. Arjuna asked him, so please give the reply for this, what Krishna says.
You testing me? Kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapama vidyena mihavayena. So, I hope I passed your test. But more important is to understand the how bad is this, what is the effect of this material desire. Yeah, anything else?
There are so many religions, so many sects, and so much confusion. How to understand who is God?
Well, we just discussed that. Briefly. Real religion means to understand that there is God, He is supreme, I am not supreme. I am the servant of the Supreme. So we have to serve Him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu summarized this. Jivesu Rupai Krishna Nityadas. Hear the translation. Alright. As you understand, I don't speak in Telugu. I speak Hindi and Bengali, but there are so many languages in India and you can't learn them all. So I've asked one of my disciples from Poland, who's now living in India, to learn Telugu. So we'll invite Gadadha Krishna Das Adhikari now to speak Bhagavad Katha in Telugu. And he also has a Telugu wife, although we're all spirit soul.